All right, technical issues aside, here we go. And we're only 2 minutes late. Not too bad considering. All right, let's get this show on the road. Appreciate everybody joining us. Let me just get these guys out of the way here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody joining us. Hey, I'm Mike Lieberman. I'm the CEO and Chief Revenue Scientist here at Square Two. I'm joined by two really great colleagues of mine, Gabe Wahab, who's the go-to-market manager for the CMS at HubSpot, and Kevin Wheatcraft, who's the director of web development here at Square Two. We're really excited everybody's been able to join us today, and we have an awesome webinar planned for you. Let's get started right away. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about why love is the secret to a lead-generating website. And here's the crew that's going to talk to you. This is actually like a crack staff of people here that can bring you some really insightful information. And I know that we're giving away something special too that I wanted to mention up front. So everyone who attends the seminar, the webinar, registers for the webinar, and then people who watch it on demand as well, we're going to be providing you this website blueprint workbook that Square Two uses to help our clients get a really solid strategy behind their website. So good for everybody. We've never released this type of information before. We're excited to share it with everybody. And I'll even mention it a time or two during the session today. So thanks for joining, and hope you enjoy this resource that you'll get post-show is over. So here's what I have planned for you today. I'm going to let Kevin and Gabe introduce themselves a little bit. And then we have three main sections to the website here, to the webinar here. Your visitors are going to love their experience, the strategy that makes this happen, how to design content that helps, generates love and creates leads, and then how to process the tools that help you love and build an optimization for your website as well. And then we'll do some questions at the end. Real quickly about me, like I said, I'm the CEO and Chief Revenue Scientist here at Square Two. We've been a HubSpot partner since 2010. We were their first diamond partner. We have 60 team members. We're a fully distributed crew here. We're the only agency with a dedicated team model, which means we can do 6 months of work in 30 days by putting a full team of people on your project. So you're not sharing them with other clients. They're working just for you and only you for 6 months. We're a full service agency. Square Two is, we have a technology practice, a RevOps practice, and I'm also the host of our video and podcast show called What's Wrong with Revenue. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. Gabe, you want to do a little intro?
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Gabe Wahab. I'm the go-to-market manager for the CMS at HubSpot. Over 20 years experience building and launching websites, and I've led teams in launching over 450 websites ranging from SMBs, mid-market companies, but also to several Fortune 500 company websites as well. I'm a former HubSpot agency partner for 11 years, and I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Gabe. Thanks, Mike. And so fun tidbit is that Gabe is actually my predecessor at Square Two. And it's come full circle because I started my career at HubSpot. I was there from 2010 to 2014. After that, I ran a small web design agency that was also a HubSpot partner. Got a great degree in graphic design before I got onto the development side. And I have 4 dogs.
Nice. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Thanks, Gabe. A little bit of housekeeping too. If anyone has any questions while we're going through this, I do have some time at the end to handle questions. If you want to submit them during the Q&A, we will tackle them at the end. If you want to chat them to us, we'll try to pick them up there as well. More than happy to try to answer some questions if you guys have them along the way. So let's get right into this. If you want to think about your website a little differently, you really have to start considering that your visitors have to love their experience. And one of the best ways to make sure this happens is by having a really solid website strategy. So that's what I'm going to talk a little bit during my session here. I want to also just reset some expectations around what your website is supposed to be doing. And it really only has one mission and one mission only, and that is to generate leads. Yes, it has to have some information on it so that people can find you, like address. And yes, some people might want to take a look at who works there, obviously. But when you look at the big scheme of things and what you're trying to do with your business from a growth perspective, we want to help you understand that you want to transition from this idea that your website might be an online brochure and get it into a position where it's actually generating leads for the business. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. A lot of people do think that their website is an online brochure and it has to kind of just share some information, basic information about your company for people that are looking for you. But I want to reset that expectation today and see if we can get people thinking a little bit more about it as a lead generation machine. Yesterday, I did one of the What's Wrong with Revenue webcasts, and I was talking to Eric Kalis, the co-founder here at Square 2, and he had an excellent metaphor that said, basically, if you're a manufacturer and you're buying a machine, you're buying that machine as an investment in the production of your products, and you really want to lean into that machine. It has value, and you're keeping that machine up to date, and you're providing proper maintenance and keeping its software updated, and you're really using it to drive the business. You really want to think about your website the same way. It's a marketing machine, and it's a machine that you're going to be investing in and maintaining and optimizing. And the result of that machine, where the factory machine is to produce products, the result of this machine around your website is to produce leads and sales opportunities and help the company grow. So start thinking about your website more like that, as opposed to this, fancy brochure that needs to be online because people tell you need it. I want to also get you thinking a little bit differently, and this is where the theme of the webinar today comes in, around this idea of love and relationships and dating. It's really critical to start thinking about it like this. Look at this picture here. This is not a great date. We've all probably been on dates like this at some point, but you're going to try to avoid this with your website. You don't want people to be uncomfortable, disengaged. He doesn't have his phone out, but that's the next move, is to pull his phone out and start checking his messages. You want your visitors to have an amazing experience when they land on your website. So they have not this experience, but this experience. You want them to be engaged. You want them to be talking. You want them to be sharing. Like, these two people look like they're having a nice first date. And that's how you want to get the people on your website to feel. And this concept of feeling is very important. I'm going to talk about it a couple of times. This concept of feeling safe is even more important, because most people are going to come to your website. Their initial feeling is going to be anxiousness. They're looking for something. They might need your products or services. They don't know you yet. They're starting to get to know you. They have to feel like you can help them. And I think a lot of people miss this concept when they're putting a website together. If you're not delivering this feeling of safety and security, and you're not getting people to feel like they're having a good first date, then you're going to be missing some opportunities to generate leads from your website. I also want to help people think a little bit differently in terms of the questions that you might be asking when you're starting to think about creating a new website. So I took a few minutes and jotted down some questions here. These are not the questions that people typically ask when they start looking at a website project. So, if you're looking at your website and it's not generating leads, and we've gotten you thinking about how to redo it, or you've been thinking about redoing it because it's not generating leads, or you've been thinking about redoing it because you don't like it, then these are the questions that you should be asking. Who do we want to attract and serve on the website? This is really important. Who are your best customers? How do you find more of them? This is what you want your website to do for you: attract and provide information to those exact people. How do they buy products and services from companies like ours? That's also important. Like, how do people go through a buyer cycle with companies like yours? How are you going to facilitate that experience for them? And your website should be designed to do that as well. What do they need to hear, see, read, or review on your site? This is really important, because you'll find, and we'll talk about this in a little more detail later on, but people are looking for certain information. When they're early in that buyer journey, they might be looking for different information than when they're in the middle or when they're in the end. And you need to ask yourself, what do we need to serve up to them when they're on our website so they have that really good first date experience? How do they feel when they're on the site? Again, this idea of feeling is very important. And even more important, what actions do you want them to take when they're on the site? Do you want them to download something? Do you want them to give you contact information? Do you want them to click to other pages? Really understanding that behavior and the actions you want them to take is going to help you design and build a much better lead generating website. And how is the site going to be found? This is critical. If your site is not found, then your site is basically invisible, and you're not going to be competitive in terms of what the competitive companies you work with might be doing. So we have to ask this question up front so that we can plan for a site that is going to be highly rankable on Google. And last but not least, how are we going to measure the site's performance? This is equally important. Like, you have a machine, as I mentioned, that machine has a certain efficiency and production expectation associated with it. You're going to have the same thing with your website. It might be how many people are coming to the site. It might be how many people are converting on the site. It might be how long they're staying on the site, or how many pages they look at on the site, or even what your bounce rate is. These are all important measurements to decide whether the site is performing as expected or not. And I mention this because really what most people ask when they're about to build a website is, what should the site look like and what words do we need? I mean, this is generally when people start websites, this is where they start. Like, oh, I like this website, make it look like this. Oh, the words on the site are fine. Well, none of those are really the right questions. So I'm going to encourage you today to potentially shift over from these two really common questions and ask the 6 or 7 questions above before you start your website project. And all these questions can get answered if you have a solid marketing strategy. And Square 2 is kind of known for a strategy before tactics approach. We get a lot of people who come to us and want to build a website. And lots of times we're asking them to slow down before they go fast and think about what their marketing strategy is. And we really are only asking that so we can make the website line up with what the company's overall marketing strategy is going to be. And here are some elements of that strategy. You want to know who your personas are. These are the people that you want to do business with. These are the people that you want to attract to your website. These are the people you want your salespeople to be spending their time with. And you want to understand them in a great degree of detail. We're going to talk about that. You also want to understand what their buyer journey looks like. Every company has a slightly different buyer journey. Every industry is slightly different. You're going to really want to start to map out your buyer journey so that you can align the website to it. What's your unique message and story? What are you saying that's different than your competitors? Very important part of your website project. What questions are prospects asking you throughout their buyer journey? Again, when it comes to pages and content on your website, you want to know what questions prospects have so you can answer them, and that will help prospects feel safe when they're on your site. And last but not least, how do we turn visitors into leads? So I'm going to talk about each of these for a couple of minutes as we go through my section. So personas are relatively straightforward. There's a couple of examples here. I know you can't read these, but you'll get the idea. You want to think through exactly who it is you want to attract to the website. And typically we ask clients, just tell us about your best customers. Usually your best customers, when you start thinking about those people, it's relatively easy to decide what personas you're looking at. Personas can be defined by vertical that you're going after. They can be defined by the role or the title of the people you're trying to attract. And then within that, you really want to get to know these people really well. How educated are they? How long have they been in their jobs? Where do they go for information? What sites are they visiting online? What industries or associations are they part of? What events or conferences or shows do they go to? What content are they currently downloading to help them do their jobs better? All of those questions are part of the persona development process, and you want this to be as robust as possible before going into your website project. You're also going to want to understand their buyer journey. Again, like each of these personas, for example, might have slightly different buyer journeys, and we want to understand them. This is the Square 2 buyer journey framework called the cyclonic buyer journey, and we have 8 stages in this journey that starts with people who are unaware and goes all the way through to the people that are actually getting products and services from you. That last stage is important. You want customers to have an equally good experience with you as you want prospects to. So whether you use this framework or a different framework, I don't think it really matters, but you want to use some kind of prospect buyer journey framework. And to give you an example of what a map might look like, again, I know you can't read this, but this is an example of a buyer journey map for the Square 2 client that starts at the very beginning and rolls through all kinds of different elements of that experience in terms of that yellowish line down towards the middle part of this map. That's how they feel. They're anxious in the beginning, and we're working really hard to make them feel a little bit safer and a little bit happier, till at the end, they're ecstatic because they found a company that they want to work with. This map represents personas. It represents questions that they're asking. It represents stages of the buyer journey. It represents content that we're serving up to them. So each stage of the buyer journey has a unique opportunity for you to create this really amazing experience. And it really starts with mapping out each stage of that buyer journey. I want to talk a little bit about messaging and story too. We talked about how important it is for someone to land on your website and have a great experience. And that initial story is really important. This is a client of ours, Crosby Hops. They're a hops manufacturer on the West Coast, and they are really leaning into this concept of a better world. They're not just hops manufacturers, but they're really leaning into sustainability and community and commitment to quality, and illustrating that on their website. And when we help them, we took a look at what other hops manufacturers are doing, and you see that they're very transactional. They don't have the community focus that these guys do. They don't have the make a better world focus that these guys do. And it allowed us to help them come up with a really differentiating story, and they're thriving with that story in their marketplace. We also talked about understanding the questions prospects ask, so you can build the right pages and serve up the right content. Well, here I just highlighted the section of the buyer journey map where all those questions are identified. So you can see there's probably 5 or 6 questions for every single stage of the buyer journey, so that we know what questions prospects are asking, what questions clients might be asking, and then we can deliver the content and the website pages that they need to answer those questions. And like I said, this is a key component to a website that converts, and a key component to a website that gives prospects that warm and fuzzy feeling we talked about at the very beginning. Now, how you might do that, I grabbed a little snippet here from the workbook. So everyone's going to get this workbook. I wanted to drill down into a template that's in the workbook so you could see how this might actually work. So there's the page name along the left side, homepage, about us, service 1, success story. There's the stage of the buyer journey that maps up to those page names. There's the questions prospects are asking associated with each of those pages. And then the content that we're offering aligned perfectly to those questions. So you can really see how this starts to provide a very constructive map for building a website that is aligned strategically. And there's a number of these templates in this workbook that you'll get after the webinar is over that will help you do some of this mapping on your own if this is a direction you decide to take. And really what we're going for here is, just like meeting that someone special at the party, we want to start a wonderful relationship, and we want it to start with the website. And this is exactly how it's going to happen. If you're engaging and offering content and creating a highly educational site that is aligned with how they want to buy your products and services, you're going to trigger the same kinds of endorphins that people have when they meet that special person at a cocktail party and they think this is a person they want to get to know a little bit better. It's the same kind of experience we're going for here. The way the human brain works is similar, whether you're meeting someone to go on a date or you're meeting someone to potentially do business with. There are a lot of similar things going on in our brains that we want to try to take advantage of from a marketing perspective. I have a little action plan here too for you. So for my section of webinar today, you want to create your own website strategy with the website blueprint workbook. So one of your action plans should be to go through the workbook and start filling it out, and then taking a look at how it aligns to your current website or your planned website project. Answer all the questions that prospects are asking while they're on the site. This is really going to help you start to understand what copy needs to be on that page and what content you need to serve up. And then, as I mentioned, you're going to create a list of content offers on the site, which will help you do a better job of converting visitors into leads. When we look at a prospect's website, when they first come to Square 2, this last section here is almost always missing. Their content could be tucked away in a resources section, or they don't have any content at all, or they have a real dearth of content. By adding the right content to the right pages, you can add a lot of lift when it comes to lead generation from your website. And with that, I want to turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Mike. So next section up here that I'm going to talk about is how designing content help create, love, and generate leads. Go ahead, Mike. So falling in love takes time usually. So we want to craft a website experience so that they fall for you. If you have a prospect that is, like myself and is an ideal fit, maybe they fall for you right away. But if you're more like my girlfriend, it takes some time to develop that trust. So similarly with relationships and websites, at first it's about wowing them, getting their attention. Then it becomes about getting them engaged, keeping them interested. And throughout the relationship, you're trying to build trust over time. Because trust is the foundation of that love. And so speaking specifically to design and making that first impression, when somebody first hits your website, that's where you want to wow them. Some topics that we'll touch on in the following slides are understand your brand and who you are, try to look different in a good way. Space can reduce anxiety. You want to show them what makes you different, and you want to show them proof. And a little nod to the Mad Men crew there for all of my marketing folks. So what we're looking at here is Square 2's website. This is our own homepage. And so going back to some of those points I just talked about, as far as understanding your brand and who you are, what we're trying to come across as is representing both our founders, Mike and Eric, but a lot of the agency. We share some commonalities in that we are a bit nerdy. We are confident enough to make fun of ourselves a little bit, and we get straight to the point. So those things that are kind of what we're trying to address. We're also wanting to try to look different in a good way. The way that we're standing out from our competition is using bold imagery and colors and in a kind of playful, tongue-in-cheek kind of way that makes us stand out a little bit and look different than maybe some of the other competitor sites that you might visit. The point about space can reduce anxiety. What we're aiming for here is delivering one message at a time. And so if you think about that in a dating context, in that first date type of way, you want to let the conversation breathe. You don't want to hit them with a ton right off the bat and overwhelm them, get too much of their space, make them feel uncomfortable. Give them one message at a time, let it flow naturally so that the important points come across. And we also want to show them what makes you different. Why are they going to remember you, and what's going to keep them coming back? So Mike, go ahead. The other thing that we want to do is show them proof. And this one, I think, also ties back to dating, in that if you have a matchmaker friend that builds you up to somebody and tells them how great you are, it's going to mean a whole lot more than you spouting off about how great you are. So client testimonials can be a great way to do that. Video can be a great way to do that. When they're hearing it from somebody else that you're really good at what you do, or that maybe the services or products that you're providing are a good fit, or in the relationship context, the values are aligned. Go ahead, Mike. And so continuing on that, show them the proof topic. Here we have examples of past client work that we've done. And I do want to note that this is one key area where your website and your approach is going to differ from dating. You probably don't want to talk a whole lot about your exes and your past relationships, but in the sense of your website, showing all of those engagements that you've had and letting them explore your past a little bit in that way can be very helpful. As far as copy, you don't want to talk too much about yourself. Again, just like dating, if you ramble on and on and on about yourself, then people are going to lose interest. What you want to do is show that you're an active listener, show that you understand what's important to them. And so the first point there is you have 10 seconds to get their attention on the homepage. And that is sometimes called the blink test. Basically, if you haven't gotten their attention in the first 10 seconds, you're very likely to lose engagement after that. And For the millennial and younger folk, you could think of that as the Tinder swipe. If you don't grab their attention, you get swiped left. The relationship's over, there's no chance to move on. Second point there, Mike, you talked a bit about emotion and feeling, and this is something that very often gets overlooked on websites. And so you want to grab their attention with an emotional, compelling, and engaging headline. Related to that, and when you get into more detail, you want to be using words like you and yours, not talking about us, we, our, my, etc. You want to be positioning it in a way that they understand how it benefits them and how it might be a good fit to engage with you. And so you don't want to come off from the narcissistic angle, talking too much about what you do. Get into your buyers' heads and help them understand why you're a good fit for them. You want to keep it short, be concise, again, on that no rambling point. And this is another one that's very important. We talked about this last point, with a lot of our clients, is that you want to write for your personas, not Google. You don't want to be too technical or jargony. It's really about the experience that they're having when they're on your site. If you're trying to write for a machine, then it's not going to do the things that you need it to do in terms of Google algorithms, looking for that experience, things like bounce rate, time on site, stuff like that. So here's an example of one of our clients. For Legacy Armor, what they do is they provide a unique software platform. It ensures your loved ones will be taken care of after you're gone. They store all of your valuable information in a digital vault. Their old tagline on their homepage was secure digital vault with AI. And that does describe what they offer, but it's not going to create any type of emotional response. It's a very boring first date. It's forgettable. You're not going to stand out. This is hitting at the emotional need that somebody is looking to fill with that headline. And then in the H2, we cover more about what it's doing. So you're still hitting that descriptive angle that can work for search engines, but the message is really about what they should be feeling and addressing the anxieties that Mike referenced at the top of the call. Go ahead, Mike. So getting into the section after that, then we're getting into some of the benefits. And again, this is more about being in their head than it is just talking about the products or services you provide. It's, you'll notice most of it uses the you language. It does say we encrypt your information. That's not a hard and fast rule. You can say we if it makes sense, but again, just being in their head, understanding what the value is that they would get out of the relationship, as opposed to just talking about points that maybe your company understands a little bit better.
Kevin, just to add a point to your comment about the we, like it's literally impossible to write a site that doesn't refer to you. So it's not as if we're saying you can't ever use we, us, our. You're going to have to at some point use those words. But like you're looking at here, there are many more you and yours than there are we and our. And I think that's really what you want. You're looking for more like 80 to 20, 80% you and your, 20% we and us, or 90-10. Like, so it's not as if you can never use those words, but you really want to make sure the balance is in the prospect's side of things, so that the site is primarily about them, and the references to you, your business, and the things that you do are a little secondary.
Yep, great point, Mike. Thank you. The next thing that I want to talk about is video, and sticking with our Summer of Love theme. Little nod to Justin Timberlake there. The reason that it's good to use video is that 60% of people identify as visual learners, and you can pack a whole lot into a short amount of time for video. Information, emotion, personality. Again, tying into some of those things that get overlooked as part of a website. Another good reason to do video is because YouTube is the second most visited website after Google. Video helps you tell that story efficiently and helps with rankings, time on site, talked about that a little bit earlier. The uses are really numerous. So if you do video well, you can get a lot across in a short amount of time, and it has more emotional response than a wall of text. So we'll look at some examples. Just going back to this overall copy section. For this example on our, Mike, one more, just wanted to address the homepage just above that. Thanks. So speaking specifically to the copy and the messaging around this, this addresses a pain point head on, and you'll notice the term finish, that is an industry term that all designers would know. So any prospect hitting this site already knows that there is, that they're insiders, that they really know what they're talking about. They know their industry because it is also hitting on those pain points of being on time, on trend, and on budget, which is, this messaging is successful because it really speaks to the pain points of designers. And you could think of using industry terminology as if you're dating again, or if you're in a long-term relationship, you start to develop those inside jokes that can build rapport, build trust, and keep it fun. So Mike, go ahead to the next one, still on the same site here. This is where they're using video. We won't play it for you here, obviously, but just pointing out that this can really get you into an immersive website experience very quickly. And you see that again on that following page, because for this client, working with their founders is something that you do very closely. And so getting to know them a bit, getting to see their personality a bit, and again, all going back to building that trust and building an immersive experience that keeps people engaged. The next topic I wanted to touch on was educational content. The more you educate your visitors, the more they'll feel safe, going back to trust. You want to cover education for early, middle, and late buyer journeys. That's something that we see holes in often, is that maybe you'll have a lot of early engagement, interesting content, but then it drops off for middle and late. So maybe you make a great first impression on that first date, but you don't have any depth. So they're not going to keep coming back. Next point there is gated and ungated content, depending on your approach. And that's just whether you're essentially providing content for free, or whether you're gating it so that you're getting their lead information to follow up with them. And that really is a deeper topic for discussion, but did want to bring it up on today's call so that it doesn't get overlooked. You want to use an appropriate format based on your personas. So sticking with our theme of dating and love, even through to this webinar today, that's kind of our persona that we're targeting, and that's why we have this theme carried throughout our content. But that might not fit for you. Maybe yours is a little bit more buttoned up and professional. Maybe you change the aspects of the site, both in, like we've been talking about, design, content, video. You want to have that consistent feel and consistent format so that you're building trust by having cohesiveness across all of this. And on that point, you want them strategically placed on the site so that everything kind of makes sense as you tell that story and you move through the site. Again, going back to our dating reference, you might open the conversation with some higher level points, some more generic topics, and then as you get deeper into the site, you get into deeper topics, more detail, etc. This one is just more providing proof. This is social proof. Clients served, projects worked on, years of business, continuing to build that trust and sprinkling elements of content like that throughout the site. Next one is an example of, talked about covering that middle of the funnel content. So a little bit later in the relationship, they kind of already understand what you do, what you could solve for. Things like a quiz in this example, a CTA there. A quiz is an interactive thing. It's a little bit more immersive. You're getting more information out of them. You're also providing more information to them. So again, going back to trust and building that engaging relationship. And never want to forget the bottom of the funnel offer, which is once they've kind of vetted you out and you're enjoying the relationship, then this is where they want to get a little bit more serious, and maybe they want to go exclusive with you. So you always need to cover your bottom of the funnel, get them to your sales team, close the deal. And so just kind of recapping this whole section, the full experience, you need to start by wowing them. You want to make it immersive, use multimedia, video, interactive things like quizzes. You want to work to get the return visit or a second date. So it's great if you wow them, but you also need to have something that's worth coming back to. It's not every sales process or not every relationship is going to, take root right away. You want to get their digits, so to speak. In this case, digitally, you want to get their email address, and you want to ask for that with content. So that's the gated content, stuff like signing up for our webinar today. And one last point to think about is they should be talking about you. So after the date, they're going to go tell their friends and family how great you are. So everybody else wants to meet you too. And on that note, before I pass it over, is just tying back into the dating thing. The prospects should leave feeling like they were on the best date ever. So tying all of that into the emotion is really important, and getting an experience that they love. So looking at the entire website experience, making sure that it's remarkable, adding educational content for all stages and all formats. And Mike, you pointed that out in the workbook to help people think through all of those stages and formats. And then checking your copy again, so it's not all about you, not talking too much about yourself, getting in the heads of your prospects and or dates.
Thanks, Kevin. That was awesome. Gabe, all you now.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Great examples, great action items. What I want to dive into today is how the right tools and processes can help you love building and optimizing your website. And I want to start by looking at what many website build processes look like today, which is like this on the screen here. You have the 6-month relationship or website rebuild filled with ups and downs. You feel great, but after 6 months, your fling ends and your website or your love life sits stagnant until your next fling. Next slide, please. Your website starts like this, but ends like this. The goal, though, is to create a long-term relationship. That with your goal overall is to create a long-term relationship that's going to give you a lifetime of love. And great relationships like that take time. They aren't built in 6 months, they're built over years. And like the best relationships, getting a peak performance website takes time. It's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to start by building a strong foundation, getting something up and running fast, and then bringing us to the next step to continuously build upon and improve that. Unfortunately, most people spend too much time in this first step and then just stop after it's done. And this is a big mistake. And some of the key components we're going to discuss are building a growth-driven foundation, a continuous improvement process, getting found, personalizing your website to your user, and testing and optimizing your site. We're going to have a lot to get through today. I'm going to keep things at a high level, but if you guys have questions, feel free to drop questions in the chat or in the Q&A at the end. So jumping in, first let's talk about the traditional website design approach versus the growth-driven approach. With a traditional approach, you're spending a lot of time up front and you're making a big bet that what you created is going to generate traffic and leads and revenue. Everything has to be perfect up front because often you're not doing much with your site for the next couple of years. These projects typically run over time and budget. It's a set it and forget it approach. And you launch your site and you just pray that it does well. Please do well, right? With a growth-driven approach, we're launching fast and small. We then continuously build upon and improve that initial launch every month. And we're using data we're collecting each month to assess what needs to be done and then continuously improve the site month over month. The investment is spread out over time, and because we're launching quicker, we start to see results quicker. So we need to adjust our mindsets to adapt to a modern website build methodology. Our goal should be to build a lean foundational site and get it launched as quickly as possible, knowing that this site will likely be better than what you currently have, and that you can continue to add to it after it's launched, all while collecting performance data on the site. Next slide, please. And before we showed what a traditional website process looks like, but this orange zigzag line is what it should look like. Small continuous improvements over time, not a set it and forget it approach. So now that we've built our foundational site, it's time to enter our continuous improvement phase. We're going to start by doing some planning, and to do that, first we have to decide what metric are we trying to move. Do I need more visits to the site? So we start thinking more about, do I need more content to be built? Does my site need to be optimized for search engines? Do I need to convert visitors? So then we start to think about, do I need to build more offers? Do I need to optimize my pages for conversion? Do I need to add more CTAs to my site? Are users spending enough time on my pages? So we start to think about, are they seeing the content I want them to see? Do I need to build more pages or optimize current pages? We'll create that list of what needs to be done, and then we'll prioritize that list. For instance, if I have no traffic coming to my site, then does it make sense to optimize for conversion? So we need to be mindful of which items we're going to prioritize. After that, after we have our plan and it's prioritized, we're going to build those items out and we're going to launch them. We want to give it some time, and then we're going to monitor how they perform based on that metric that we picked in the planning phase. After some time, we then look at our results and see what we learned. Did we achieve the results we wanted? Did we fall flat? Did something unexpected happen? What did we learn? Even if an experiment we ran failed, hey, that's still okay. We still learned something and continue to hone in on our goal from that. Finally, we then take what we learned and inform others who need to know about the results so they can learn from that as well. And then we start the whole process over again. I should also mention that these website projects are not meant to completely replace other marketing and sales initiatives. They're really just one piece of the puzzle here. Next slide, please. So still not convinced that this is a good process? Here are a couple stats for you from the results of those who used a growth-driven approach versus somebody who used a traditional approach. And you can see those who used a growth-driven approach reported 16.9% more leads, 11.2% more revenue, and 14% more traffic than those who used that traditional approach. So the next question I typically get is, what kind of experiments should I be doing? And the canned response here is, well, it depends on your business and everyone's situation. But I can tell you from working with so many sites over the years, there's definitely some common themes that I see. First is most sites aren't getting enough traffic. And the reality is, if your site isn't ranking, you're virtually invisible. You can use tools like HubSpot's Website Grader, HubSpot's SEO tool, or if you don't have HubSpot, you can use something like SEMrush, Google Lighthouse, Google Webmaster Tools, and so on. The second most common issue I see is that sites that lack the right types and enough conversion points. Each of your pages should have at least one conversion point that's aligned to the stage in the buyer journey that page is targeting. You can use HubSpot's CTA and landing page tools or something like Unbounce to do that. The third most common issue I see is poor user experiences. Confusing menus, hard to read content, poor storytelling, and just overall the lack of personalized experiences. For this, you can use HubSpot's A/B testing or adaptive testing tools, heat mapping tools like Lucky Orange, and HubSpot's marketing suite to just overall create personalized experiences. And personalized experiences is something I want to talk a little bit more about because I think there's a huge opportunity for organizations to create incredible digital experiences that'll drive traffic and convert leads. So let's start with reviewing. Why do digital experiences matter? Next slide. So these days, we all expect digital experiences to be seamless and personalized. Companies like Amazon, Netflix, Uber, they've all set the new standard for smooth one-to-one experiences. And with a new bar set, everyone now expects that the same experience, that they expect that same experience from any type of company. That's mid-market companies, SMB companies, B2C companies, B2B companies. Doesn't matter. The expectation is still the same. But here's the beautiful part. Building world-class personalized experiences is not only good for your end customer, it's good for you as a company. So McKinsey calls personalization the holy grail. They cite a recent Harvard research study that showed personalized experiences can reduce acquisition costs, increase revenue, and increase efficiency. For business, that's excellent, right? Next slide. The good news, companies are taking notice and prioritizing. In a 2022 Forrester study, companies cite their number one place to improve overall customer experience is online. But then if we go to the next slide, we see that there's still work to do. When Forrester surveyed their customers, the majority of customers cited, the experience is okay. It's fine, nothing to write home about. Is this depressing? Maybe. But I see it as exciting. Why? Because this is your opportunity. Think about it. Customers expect seamless digital experiences. Good experiences impact the growth of businesses. But a lot of companies have poor digital experiences, especially personalized ones. So now you have the opportunity to create a strategic advantage over your competitors and take that market share. You can create world-class experiences. So if we go to the next slide, and here's the beauty in the results. Here's some data that we pulled, and what we found is that customers who use Marketing Hub and CMS Hub, the core tools we need to make these personalized experiences, see 141% additional lift at 12 months on website traffic versus Marketing Hub with another CMS like WordPress, or just the CMS alone. And if we go to the next slide, not only that, when we look at Marketing Hub customers 12 months after signing up, they're typically going to see a 202% lift in inbound leads. That's great. But when you look at Marketing Hub and CMS Hub together, you see a 573% lift in inbound leads 12 months in. That's impressive. And the data makes it clear if you want to increase leads, using Marketing Hub and CMS Hub to craft the experience is the ideal approach. Now, you'll notice that I said crafted on that last slide, and that's because typically you're going to need many disjointed tools and to get them talking to each other, and that's really, really difficult to do. HubSpot makes it easy though, and we crafted this all in one platform, creating these world-class personalized experiences. And this includes the CRM as your unified data layer, the CMS as your system of content, and Marketing Hub as your system of engagement, all crafted natively together right out of the box to create this digital experience platform. So the next question you're probably going to ask is, Gabe, what does a personalized experience look like? The first thing we're going to have to understand is to make personalized experiences, we need the right data. What kind of customer are they? What have they bought? What type of services have we done for them? What role are they in? And so on. And from there, we need to understand what their needs are that we can help them with. For example, you can build a partner portal for your partners and customize the content or promotions based on who's in that portal. You could build a payment portal for your customers and target them with offers based on who they are. You can build an app marketplace that bases its featured apps based on the user. An online academy that recommends courses that are relevant or most important to a user based on their role. And there's so much more that you can do, but the important thing to remember is we're creating rich digital experiences just like Amazon and Netflix. At the end of the day, it's time to stop thinking of a website like a short fling and start thinking about it like a long-term investment. Successful websites take long-term investment, time, and energy. It's not a 6 months and done experience. And so some action items for you guys. One is get site-wide performance data across all areas: SEO data, conversion data, page performance, and content performance. Start looking at this data. What is it telling you today? How are you performing? Where do we need to make improvements? Track that performance data weekly for conversions and monthly for overall site performance. Create monthly growth-driven design optimization activities. And finally, start thinking about how you can personalize your website for those web experiences. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Mike.
Gabe, thanks so much. That was awesome. So we have a couple minutes till the top of the hour, and I wanted to just remind everybody about their workbook. So like I said, a lot of what Gabe and Kevin and I talked about today are going to be represented in this website blueprint workbook. Your step-by-step guide to building a website that generate leads. You'll see a lot of the thinking that we share with you today in the workbook when you get it. So you can start filling out the workbook and using that as your blueprint for creating an amazing website. If you want to kind of shift metaphors for a minute, if you were building a house, there's no way you would have your construction team show up and start building without a blueprint that you already approved. Oh, this is exactly where I want the closet, and I'd like the kitchen to be a little bit bigger because I like to cook. Like, no construction people in their right mind would start building a house without plans. And I think you want to consider your website in a similar way. You can't start building it, designing it, writing it, planning for pages until you know what your blueprint looks like. And this workbook should give you an excellent tool to start mapping out that blueprint so that it can be turned over to someone who's going to build you an amazing lead generating website. I really appreciate everybody joining us. We have a couple minutes, and I do have a couple questions that were submitted. If anyone has some additional questions that you want Kevin, Gabe, or me to tackle, just put them in the QA section of the Zoom meeting and we can handle them. But guys, I do have a question here, and it's from Ashley in New York City. She wants to know about budget. And I know you guys are experts when it comes to figuring out like a budget for a website project, but maybe you could give us, share some experiences in terms of ranges and what someone should be thinking about when they're about to tackle a new website project. Gabe, why don't you start? And then Kevin, you can add some color and follow up. What are you guys seeing today if someone's thinking about redoing their website?
Yeah, budgets can be all over the place. You can go hire some kid in a basement for $5,000 and, get a website, and you can go hire an agency for $1 million and get a website. I think at the end of the day, what you really need to look at is, what do I need in a website? And, when you're looking at that budget, I think generally sites that are going to do the activities that we kind of talked about today, they're going to have that messaging, that are going to have that SEO value. They're going to be able to look at your personas. They're going to have this plan, have those conversion points. You're generally going to, I think, be anywhere in like the $30,000 to $100,000 range, typically is what to plan for. And that's going to be affected by how many pages are on the site, what different features you're going to have. Are you going to have something like a library, or how many offers, maybe need to be built? But I mean, generally 30, I know that's a pretty wide range, but I'd say 30's on the low, 100's on the high, probably somewhere in 50 to 70 maybe is your average, is my guess of typically where those budgets range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kevin, you want to add?
Yeah, I agree with the range. I know it is pretty wide. I also think Gabe's section of the presentation made an important point about you really shouldn't be thinking of it as a one-off project. It should be, build the MVP and then continue to build where it makes sense over time. So I would say if you're working with an agency to build the website for you, $30K is going to be on the low end to get a small MVP set up. If you're doing more advanced strategy and discovery, which I think often gets overlooked and is something that I really like working at Square 2 and with our clients on, is getting the strategy all lined up. A lot of stuff that we're talking about today, getting that in place before you try to go make it look pretty and get it online, is the thinking behind it. matters a lot. And that's where I would go with an agency, is to get that plan in place. Once you go to build, it really depends a lot on the size of the site too. So if you have a lot of pages, that can ratchet up the cost pretty quickly. Something else you can consider is a happy medium, where an agency can help you think through the site, get the base of the site set up, and give you the tools that you can have your marketers go spin up additional content with. So that usually winds up being a nice happy medium, somewhere in that 50 to 70 range that Gabe mentioned.
Yeah. I think too, when you look at page content, I think a lot of people are actually spreading their content over too many pages with too little information. And I think a lot of times, you want to be able to get straight to the point. People have short attention spans, and it's hard. It's harder to write good content that gets right to the point and is going to be able to engage a user. But a lot of times I think we find that there's too many pages on a lot of sites, and a lot of those sites can be consolidated and messaged better. And so when you're looking at your current site, you maybe say, hey, we have 100 pages or we have 50 pages. A lot of times that can be cut down significantly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And we end up working with, from time to time, companies that say to us, well, we're going to write the content. And I think to some extent that might be a mistake. I understand that they have content experts and industry expertise, product expertise, and those kinds of things. But I don't think they realize that content creation for a website page is different than simply writing a blog article or, a white paper. You have to, Gabe, to your point, you have to be very concise. You have a very limited amount of real estate in which you can get your words in. People aren't reading long, wordy websites anymore. So you might have a sentence or two to communicate a complex point. And I think in a lot of cases, it's better to have someone who specializes in writing website copy as opposed to someone who's just, understands a business or has done some writing in the past. And we've had some projects lately that have, been a little less efficient than I would have expected because the client was doing the writing. I think our team could have done a better job because of their past experiences writing website copy. So I think that's a consideration if you're looking at a website project, you're going to try to save some money by saying to whoever's going to do the design and build, oh, we'll handle the copy. Like, it seems easy. It seems like a no-brainer, but I don't know that that's going to actually save you any money in the long run when you end up having the agency go through and kind of retrofit that to get it into their website design. So something to consider too. We're at the top of the hour. Let me wrap up. There was a question about the workbook. We will be emailing the workbook out to everybody who attended the webinar. So stay tuned for that. Look for it in your inbox shortly. Appreciate everybody joining us. Gabe, Kevin, thanks for helping out. Everyone that participated, thanks for joining. And if you need any additional information, you can check out the Square 2 Marketing website. We have a ton of website related information for anyone who's interested. Thanks very much, everybody, and have a great day.